next meeting, about 7 minutes late. Here we go. Call the meeting to order. Anybody object to waiving the moment of prayer or the pledge on this one? Okay. Terry, if you'll call the roll, please.
Pat Rooney?
Here.
Kathy Cox?
Here.
Nicole Cohen?
Here.
John Maston?
Here. I'll entertain a motion to review and accept the agenda.
I make a motion we review and accept the agenda.
Second.
Nicole Cohen?
Yes.
Kathy Cox?
Yes.
Pat Rooney?
Yes.
John Maston?
Yes. The purpose for our meeting is to do our board self-evaluation. This is an annual thing that we do, and Superintendent Steyer has graciously volunteered to help us come to a consensus on what our thought processes are. We've got some things that I think are appropriate in front of us for the purposes of our self-review that have happened in the past year. Is it our feeling that we want to work these into the review process, or do we want to tackle them first and then move into the review process?
What things?
I've got a couple of complaints here in front of me
Okay.
that I think we need to discuss.
That's part of the board self-evaluation?
It is, as a matter of fact.
Okay. What are they? Are they complaints?
I've got a complaint that was filed with the Attorney General's office by Mrs. Cohen against a board member in regards to violation of Arizona Revised Statute 15511. And then I have a letter from the chairperson of our Employee Benefit Trust as well about some things that happened within the discussions on the center in trying to get a third party to come in and pick that up.
Did you want copies made of that?
I can. I don't know that we want to necessarily inject a bunch of names into this, but we can.
It's up to you.
Would you like a copy?
I would.
I mean,
One for everybody at class.
My suggestion would be that we just work through it.
Okay.
Go through the,
I agree with
and then insert it where it belongs.
in this, okay.
you. Yep.
Very good. So what we have for you is a blank self-evaluation form. I know last year you had an opportunity to look at that in advance. I don't know if any of you rated yourselves in advance or not. And then we also included the evaluation from last year as well for the board's review and comparison. So the first section is the board relationship with the superintendent. And this area covers under number 1, the board communicating the issues, needs, and complaints that in a way that allows the superintendent to resolve those problems. This, number 2 is interpreting, the board clearly interprets its position on controversial matters pertaining to the district, enabling the superintendent to properly carry out the wishes of the board. So that's communicating where the board stands in an area. Number 3, the board disregards personalities and considers the recommendations of the superintendent in an unbiased and objective manner. And then number 4, the board communicates views of personal effectiveness, including views related to the superintendent, in a confidential and professional manner. So if you would like to go through these 4 items and discuss how you would rate yourselves, I guess I would ask, do you want to just like have each person say and then, or have a conversation?
I would like to give my answers for us, my opinion as a board, not that I'm not rating myself.
Understand?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I don't mind doing that.
Okay.
You want me to start?
Sure, that would be
Okay.
great.
I think across the board, in my opinion, as a board, it was either, I would say unsatisfactory, but I'd be willing to come to a consensus with needs improvement on every single one. there's specific examples where if we're grading as a board where we've fallen short, where, you know, we have not done these things as well as we did the first year. So that would be mine.
I never, you know, a general statement like that, I want to know specifics because later
Sure.
I do have some specifics.
Okay.
So that's what I want to know.
Okay, so number one, board imparts information on issues, needs, complaints in a manner allowing the superintendent the opportunity to resolve related problems in a professional manner. I think we have a school board member who has not communicated with our superintendent and given her the opportunity to resolve things. I think she looks to make an issue out of it in a public setting without affording the opportunity beforehand to handle it. Number two, board clearly interprets its position on controversial matters. I say no only because of the Red for Ed meeting, and we had a board member with a Red for Ed shirt on. The board disregards personalities. I think that speaks for itself. I don't know that I need to list all the ways that everybody has seen how that is not the case. And board communicates views of personal effectiveness, including views related to the superintendent in a confidential manner. Again, I think there's multiple examples where this is, when I see professional manner and confidential, that means that you would communicate it either over the phone or stop into the superintendent's office. Superintendent isn't going to hear it for the first time from a board member in a public meeting, so.
Okay, but when I look at that statement there,
Maybe I'm interpreting it wrong.
when I look at that, those 1, 2, 3, 4, it emphasizes the board.
Right.
The board is not one person. The board is, right now, it's 4 people. In the past, it's been 5 people.
Sure.
So if the majority of the board feels that this stuff is getting done, and if it is getting done, there might be an individual that, you know, you might have an issue with, but the board speaks as the board.
I understand that, but the board is only going to be as successful and effective as its weakest link.
Okay.
I don't know, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and if we're going to fill this out just based individually.
But you went down and you said unsatisfactory.
Well, I
And,
do think it's unsatisfactory. I think it's
Well,
very distracting.
are you focusing on one person, or are you focusing on the board?
I think she made that clear,
I-
what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with both of you. I really think that the board is more than just one person. The problem is that when the board oversteps in areas of authority, when the board has a member that violates policy, when we're not communicating clearly with the superintendent, understanding our role in the scope of things, one person, one bad apple spoils the bunch. And we've got to speak as a board and not as 4 individual members when we're done. When we make a decision in here, we get up, we walk out the door, and it's done.
Let me
have
just
a
say this,
problem.
Pat. The first 2 years I was on the board, obviously, I was the odd man out, right?
Yeah. I guess.
But I didn't
don't know.
blindside our president, and I didn't blindside our superintendent, and I didn't blindside any of the directors. I may have asked questions, but I didn't blindside them to make it seem like they didn't know what was going on in their district. And I feel like that has happened. A lot.
Okay, so assuming
So-
that you don't want to say who this board member is, I'm perfectly happy if you do.
Okay.
But,
I thought it was
what-
obvious, but okay.
No, I would like to know how I blindsided the board president. I would like to know who I blindsided over here because I'm not aware of that. I probably, the only instance I can think of that I would have blindsided the superintendent would have been when I had poor information about Governor Ducey's added money, but that's, that was, okay. That's, when I was filling this out today, I don't see a category about communication. And I discussed that situation with Mrs. Asire, and I asked her if in the future, what I'm talking about tonight is not just doing an evaluation, but coming up with better processes for things to happen. And I think what's missing is some process. For example, I said before that I don't think there is sufficient communication from the superintendent's office, or maybe even the board president, to the rest of the board. And I would hope that a new process to be set up would be, maybe you sent it, maybe I didn't see it, but a link to Governor Ducey's new investment that he put in education, so I could go and look for it. I know that Mr. Maston told me that he did, that he went out on his own and searched out all of those links. Well, I'm sorry, I did not. And I had bad information. Mrs. Asire, did you send out a link to us about that?
Actually, ASBA did.
Okay.
And so I truly made the assumption that because you got the ASBA email that you would review that.
Okay, and I often don't look, I don't open the ASBA emails. But that's just one example of some other kinds of things that I think would make for a better process, better communication. So when we all come here, we all know the same information. If we took the time to do it, which I was at fault for not opening that email. But I think that would help, but I certainly did not mean to blindside you, and I certainly apologize, but I thought I had the correct information, and if only I had known that it was not necessary to, what was it that I thought that it had to be 10%, a 10% increase. I believe that's what I had been told, that I wouldn't have taken up the board's time that night. But regardless, how did I blindside the board president?
You and I had a conversation about a month and a half ago after a board meeting where you came up to me and told me that on multiple occasions you had violated Arizona Revised Statutes 15511.
Well, you're talking about getting signatures
In violation of Arizona Revised Statutes on school property.
Well, you and I discussed that.
We did.
Well, no.
I don't think that belongs in the section we're talking about, actually.
I don't.
Okay, well, that was
Can we
brought
save
up,
that
but
for
that's fine.
a more appropriate section?
That's
Because that's
fine.
not.
Okay.
So I guess my point that I was trying to make is that, first of all, we're supposed to be, we have a responsibility to do our own due diligence up
Yes.
here. And for somebody that is engaged, that's a former principal, an administrator, who is in the know in education things, the idea that the superintendent would need to spoon feed you anything coming out of the legislature kind of blows my mind. So I think that is everybody's responsibility up here. She's in charge of this school district. She's not in charge of that. This is why we pay dues to the ASBA, so we get all that information and we get it on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that is a prime example of what I mean by saying that you're not getting the information. And you say that a lot at our meetings, and it's outrageous because you've got a computer, you've got access, and you can get any information that you want the same way the rest of us do. So to hold one person accountable to give it to you before a board meeting, I think that's your responsibility as an elected official to get that information and let the superintendent manage all the other things that are taking place in the school.
That's part of what we have in board conversation as well. I do my homework. I mean, honestly, Kathy, I work 50, 60 hours a week in my business, and I still do this, and I still do the research, and I take time to go to conferences. I make visits to the Arizona State Board. I've talked to legislators. I spend time at this. This isn't just something I show up for a meeting on. And and I make sure that I have the background information that I need to have a discussion on. There are a lot of times, and I can tell you numerous times, that I've walked in here and not had a final thought in my head about what we were going to discuss. And that's what the board discussion is for. If you do your research, if you stay engaged, if you see this, and I know that you get engaged with this stuff. I mean, you've been on you're part of the Bail Network. So you're there, you've worn a red for ed shirt into the board meeting. You are very well connected in the political side of this. And to say that you're not well informed on an issue kind of puts me back a little bit. You should know enough to at least have a discussion to come to a conclusion in a board meeting. I can't see why you wouldn't have that with the way that you are connected into the education community. It kind of blows me away.
Well, don't be blown away, John. You're going to be just fine. Just stay seated. The Red for Ed shirt, which was brought up, I came in that night. I was running late, and you looked at me oddly, and sometime that afternoon, I had not checked my email late in the afternoon, or whenever that email came, that we should not bring that to the board meeting, or wear it to the board meeting. And if I had gotten here at 3:30, like I often do, I would have had time to run home and change it. That's a meeting. I got here late, and I said to you, I'm sorry, I didn't see that board meeting. I didn't see the email. I'm not going to go home and change my shirt. And there was no option.
To clarify, the email did not come from me or anybody
Well, I
else on
don't
the
know who
board.
it came from. Who did it come from?
I don't know. I never saw that email.
Well, you were the one who told me.
Point of order. I hate to do this, but we're still off topic. This
Thank
has
you.
nothing to do with the superintendent.
Well,
I mean,
you
there's a
brought up the
section
Red
for
Ed.
members.
You brought up the Red for Ed shirt. So I thought this was where we would address it. I don't care where we address it.
That's fine. This was on controversial issues, but it was under, I was being asked to cite examples, and I didn't know that I needed to prepare a long list of examples for each
It
area.
wasn't long. It was not that long.
Okay, all I'm saying is that I feel like as a board, since I'm judging us as a board, that we need improvement at a minimum.
I'm perfectly happy to put
Needs improvement.
needs improvement for everything, just to make this short,
Okay.
not prolong it.
Sorry, Pat, I know it's your last year, and
No, I'm just saying that when all of a sudden there are some issues like this, and, like,
it hasn't been all of a sudden, though. It's been since January
well, I
2017.
know there's some things in here that I'm going to bring up later,
Okay.
but as far as, anytime I've had an issue, I've always felt comfortable going to the superintendent. And that's where it ends up. And I don't like to, and I don't. I hope you feel this, occupy your time on something that is not important. And so I think when you start looking at the board, overall, you look at the board's relationship. Now, maybe one of the board members didn't get it, but what I'm looking at is the total board. What is the relationship with, now, if we were all having that problem, I could understand it. And I don't have a problem with looking at these separately and saying maybe we need improvement, but to just go down and say they're unsatisfactory, I mean, if you want to do that, hey, that's not my feeling. I hope I never contributed to anything like that, and that's why I'm saying that.
I understand. It just
Okay.
feels like the only way to make sure that attention is paid to it going
But
forward.
what I don't understand is it
Well-
doesn't say the board's relationship with the other board members. It says the board relationship with the superintendent. And do all of these items refer to the superintendent? Do the board?
These four here in this section refer to the superintendent.
Well, but her, I don't see how what I did, other than the issue with Governor Ducey's extra money,
Okay,
Just
well,
kidding, I'm
there
not
was a
aware
big
of
thing
anything
about
else.
there was a big thing about rats that we had in campus one time. There's been quite a few things like that that you could easily have asked beforehand. But instead, now you've put it out there for everybody to start talking about,
Oh, come on.
rat poisoning or
What about
whatever.
transparency, Nicole? Your main issue is transparency.
I don't have a problem with transparency. Give me a break,
I
Kathy.
didn't bring up the rats.
But
and
you
the
don't
way-
even ask beforehand is my point. You don't even give the courtesy of asking
But-
about it
but
without
something-
creating a big
Something
to-do.
came up at the board
All right.
meeting about
Okay.
something in the newspaper.
You wanted an
like in
example? I
Putnam.
was giving you an
It came
example.
up at the school board meeting, and
From you.
I asked about it at the school board meeting. I
All
didn't
right.
bring it
All
up,
right.
somebody else brought it up.
We're
Okay.
moving down the side of the alley here.
Okay.
So do we have enough on A to call it that we need improvement in that area?
I will consent to N.
I'm good with it too. Kathy?
I've already said I am.
Pat?
On 3, it says the board disregards personalities and considers the recommendations of the superintendent in an unbiased and objective manner. I see that we've met that. When the you know what I mean? Maybe I'm not seeing some stuff, but when those things come up and the superintendent's recommended it, I don't see that we go ahead and focus in on anything like that. We try to do the best possible job.
I agree with you.
The board communicates views of personal effectiveness, including views related to the superintendent in a confidential and professional manner. Any conversation I've had with the superintendent, it's one-on-one and it stays there. I have a real problem with the initial thing of these were unsatisfactory, and now all of a sudden, we're all going to go ahead and give it an N. On those two, there's no doubt in my mind that those are satisfactory.
What two?
The last
Besides
two.
3.
3 and 4.
Well, for yourself, I believe it's true. Absolutely, without question. I think yours, if we were doing it individually, would be satisfactory all the way across, but that's...
I think overall as a board,
Okay.
those are satisfactory. That's the way I feel.
Okay.
So, since we're talking about me, let's look at number 4. What
Hold on. We really don't want to belabor all of this to the degree we are.
Well, I agree with Pat on 3 and 4.
Okay.
I don't know how anyone here has violated number 4, but if I have, I would like to know what it was.
I think the example that Mrs. Cohen gave was the budget.
For number 4? Oh,
The budget meeting.
so that didn't apply to 1, 2, or 3? The budget meeting didn't apply to number
That was,
1?
my understanding was that was an example for number 4.
Okay, so what's the problem then with number 1 and
Oh, my gosh.
the board?
Then I consent to satisfactory, because clearly we can sit here for 2 hours to argue about every single thing because Kathy doesn't want to take responsibility for
Nicole,
not...
Stop it.
No,
You
I
are-
will not.
You are being, right now, I disregard your personality.
No, you don't.
Oh, my goodness, I
Okay.
do. I disregard it.
We'll just,
I let
we'll
it
just
go.
go,
I
let's
disagree
just,
with you
let's
about
just
issues. I
come
let you
to
go.
consensus with satisfactory on number A, and we'll just save it for
I didn't say.
board relationship
I-
between members during meetings.
I didn't say on all of them, Nicole.
Well, Kathy wants to go back to A because she wants to argue whether it
No,
needs improvement or not,
You are
so.
characterizing it in a way, I simply asked a question.
She-
Since this is mostly
She
about
said
me,
that
I'd
she
like to
agreed
know
with, in.
about number
on
1 and me.
1
I
and
mean-
2.
Well, then
I
then
mean,
we're done then, right?
Well, it seems to me if we agree that we need on 1 and 2 in, and then the 3 and 4 are satisfactory, I guess we're done. I don't want to I don't want to force something down someone's throat, but if I don't agree with it, I don't agree with it.
Right.
Well, I'm obviously willing to take responsibility, Nicole, or I wouldn't have agreed immediately to let's put in on everything. So don't characterize me and don't give me motives. Don't characterize
All
me
right,
in a way that's not
again,
true.
we're going sideways.
That's,
We
I
need to come-
understand
We need to
that.
come to a consensus.
I'm trying to contain her, try
So-
to hold her down.
So
Are we okay on?
I think we have an N on 1 and 2 and an S on 3 and 4, I think
Okay.
is our consensus.
I think there should be an N on 4 because of the budget.
Duly noted.
Fine.
Okay.
The next item is the board relationship with the
It'll be
community.
interesting.
So these particular areas, there are 3. The board recognizes that the citizens have entrusted them with the educational development of the children and youth of this community. Number 2, the board recognizes that the community expects their first and greatest concern to be in the best interest of each and every one of the young people, without distinction as to who they are or what their background may be. And then number 3, the board enacts policies supporting the efforts of the administration in helping the people of this community to have the facts about their schools, to the end that they will readily provide the finest possible school programs, school staff, and school facilities. Mr. Rooney, you want to start this time?
I put an S on all those.
Mrs. Cox?
I do too.
Mr. Pastor?
I think that we can do a better job communicating with our community on number 1. We have a lot of these controversial things get drummed up. And in the process of going through them, what I hear coming back from the community is, why can't you concentrate on what our kids are learning? And I think we need to do a better job as a group in communicating with our community. So I would mark that one as needs improvement personally.
And I think that we're satisfactory in 1 and 2, but I think 3 is the board enacts policies supporting the efforts of administration and helping the people of the community to have facts about their schools, to the end that they will readily provide the finest possible school program, staff, and facilities. I think that's, I guess it's the facts about our schools, because a lot of what gets discussed in our community isn't facts, and I don't know that we can enact policies, so I don't even know if this is properly written, or written in a good way to judge ourselves by. But
So on this one, I agree that this is not really well written. I have seen an improvement from the policies on parent engagement and parent involvement. The movement from PACE to looking at the comprehensive needs assessment and having each of our schools do a school-based council. I do think that there has been some improvement in that regard from the policy side of this is how we're going to engage our community. Whether the facts that they're getting actually are much more relevant than they have been in the past, I just think that the board hasn't necessarily had the opportunity to see that part of it. So Mr. Madison is suggesting a needs on number 1. And I don't know, Mrs. Cohen, are you okay with the satisfactory for number 3? How do you all feel about a needs on number 1?
I'm fine with that.
So that would be an end.
That would be,
I mean, is
I mean, I don't see how we could not understand that statement that the board recognizes that the citizens have entrusted them with the educational about. I think we understand that.
well,
I think the issue may be the procedural thing of making them aware of everything, but I think the understanding of what the board expects. I mean, you know, we have board meetings, we definitely let the parents speak and all that, and we consider oftentimes what they do say, and I think the administration does the same thing. So I think our educators, I think our board, I think the whole operation understands that. Now, whether we communicate that in an effective way over and over and over again, that may be a different thing.
I view it as a test, by the way, the same way we take tests in school. If I teach a student a subject, and the student understands the subject, and I give him a test and he fails, he can have all the understanding in the world, but he is not regurgitating the information to pass the test. And I view communication with the public the same way. We can have a great understanding that we're doing the right things, but if we're not communicating it, the final part of that is getting it to the public.
I think that the key here is the board relationship with the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I don't mean that any disrespect, but you and Kathy have a relationship probably with the same kind of group. John's on Facebook and he tries to communicate online, but the community is bigger than just the teachers and the students and the parents that are currently enrolled or former parents. It's 50,000 now, so the community is a lot bigger now. So that's why I think I would be okay with needs improvement, because it's a large community, and I don't know that we're hitting as a board, not that we have administrators and principals that are out in the community all the time, but this is talking specifically about us as a board, and I don't know that we're reaching out to unfamiliar areas individually, you know, that we're not comfortable in. So I think there's room for improvement there.
Okay.
So that's an N and 2 S's.
Million two S's.
Okay, the next three items under C are board relationships between members during meetings. So the three areas here are individual members of the board treat other members of the board and professional staff with respect during board meetings. Differences of opinion influencing board member votes are based on the issues at hand and not on a personality basis. All members of the board conduct themselves in such a manner as to emphasize that individual board members have authority only when convened in a legally conducted board meeting with at least a quorum present.
I did on that. Well, you can start with someone else. You started with me last time.
on the first one, I have needs. On the second one, I have satisfactory. And on the third one, I have unsatisfactory.
Mr. Maston?
I will agree with Mrs. Cox on the last one, unsatisfactory. I think that what happens, especially on number 2, is we have a tendency to go outside of the scope of the topic on occasion, and I would mark that one N. And I would say that number 1, I can do satisfactory or needs improvement on number 1.
Ms. Cohen?
I think all of them for me are a minimum of needs improvement. And I wish I could pluck you out, Mr. Rooney, but I can't. But as a board, I think it's been a rough go at it because I don't think there has been any reciprocal respect between Kathy and I at all. So
I'm sorry.
I'm a needs improvement at minimum.
On all of them.
Mhm.
That's fine with me.
Mr. Rooney?
You know, this differences of opinion.
It's deeper than that,
Influencing
Pat.
board members are based on the issues at hand and not on a personality basis. I know, Nicole, but I can remember a couple of times when I had to reassure you that that was my opinion. You know what I mean? And I sort of like when board members come together, and if they have issues, I want that out. It doesn't mean that, and it has never been that way with me, and you know, we can have a difference of opinion, but we can still be respectful and friendly and all that. You know, I would hate to have a board up here like they're all potted plants and they just go along. Because if I have, and you heard that when the issue of discipline came up. I mean, I had strong feelings about that, and maybe some of the other board members didn't feel that way. I respected their opinions, I disagreed with them, but I think we all bring different ideas to the table, and hopefully those ideas are accepted and it doesn't become a personality issue.
Right.
You know, that's the way I feel, and that's in any board or any governing thing. I think that's how you get things done. And you know, as I've listened with this board and other boards, sometimes you just over a period of time you really begin to realize that the person has some real strong views on something, and there's substance to them, and then you change and stuff like that. That's how I view a position on the board.
And that's okay to have differences in opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that Mr. Rooney, what I heard you say though is when you all have expressed differences of opinion, those have been based on not agreeing on the issue, not because of who you are with each other.
I would hate to think that it was it. I could disagree with Nicole on something, and that's all it is. It's on the issue. And
Right.
That's my approach to that. But anyway.
And I know that.
And you know,
I know that.
An example would be initially on the issue of the EBT.
Right.
You know, and then all over time, and I think I've even told you and thanked you, and I've also thanked Marcia, that you guys ran with the ball there. And
Right.
so, you know, and that was allowing another opinion to come in and eventually see where that would go. And, you know, and I think it turned out in the positive way.
And I appreciate that, and that's exactly what I meant when I said I wish I could pluck you out of this, and not, because I appreciate the fact that we can disagree, and I don't feel like it's personal. But when it comes to Kathy and I, you know, you have to understand, I reached out to Kathy before she ran for the school board because she was against Common Core and against assessments. And I had a conversation with her, and I felt like she has fought me on this board every step of the way. I feel like she has undermined me. She's been, I feel like she's been deceitful. She's lied to me. She has set me up to ruin relationships. She's made it so that I'm forced to call out a name of a staff member when I'm trying to work on a sensitive subject, or what she, please don't interrupt me till I'm done, and then you can have your say. When I was board president and I asked for the two trustees to step down, she forced, you know, I was trying to be respectful. So I feel like, and then, you know, we'll get to the Attorney General complaint. So it is a personality thing, but it's not on my side. And I mean, I actually called her a liar at a board meeting, and I went up and apologized because I felt bad for it. But you know what?
You take it back now, so that's...
I do, because
right.
you continue to show your colors. So.
Oh my goodness, what have I lied about now since that time? Tell me please, what have I lied about? I can't wait to hear it.
Did Superintendent Assar, is that the reason you put me between those two?
That would be it.
Actually, it was my choice to sit on this side of you.
It was going to be the other way, Pat.
Right.
Had it going in the other ear.
I wonder now. Okay, so what, everyone feels that needs improvement in that area?
So what I heard a needs improvement on number 1. I heard either satisfactory or needs on number 2, and I'm sat on number 3. So,
I'm good with that.
Whatever you want, I don't care.
So,
It's not that I don't care, Nicole, it's just
so
to get through
is that
this.
3 ends?
I think it was 2 N's and a U. That's what I heard. A U on number 3.
And maybe this is maybe number 3 is the place to insert the AG, because that's what I feel like, that's what initiated me to file a complaint.
Well,
So-
go ahead if you want to put it there, let's talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. Individual board members have the authority only when convened in a legally conducted board meeting with at least a quorum present. And I feel like in addition to all the other issues that we've had, and by the way, I have started anew at every meeting, but this was the final straw, because now you are trying to organize and influence the outcome of an election using your influence and using our employees and using your access. I could never walk onto a campus and get signatures.
I didn't walk onto a campus and get signatures.
You're
That's not what
lying.
you told me.
No, excuse me.
Well, that's a lie.
Well, I didn't-
Which
what I-
time that you collected signatures on the campus was
I
that?
told you that people had called me and asked me, I didn't go ask for signatures. People called me and said, if you will come by, I will come out on the street and sign the petition. That's what happened. I didn't go around collecting signatures. There was an incident at one school where I was supposed to meet someone. I had to go get that person. We were going to walk out to the street, and on the way to that room, somebody took the clipboard out of my hand and signed, and I was thinking, oh, I better not do this. But anyway, I didn't go there to collect signatures, and I told you about that event, and I said that would be like, what, I forget now, 5 signatures, 7 signatures maybe, 5 maybe, signatures, and that would be it. And I was totally honest with you about it. I didn't lie about it, I didn't do anything. I agreed that it was wrong to go there, but I didn't go to collect signatures or canvas for them. And when we were at the law conference, I heard the school attorneys, 2 of them, talk about how that was not against the law. Well, I'm sorry, but 2 of the school attorneys did say that, Nicole.
Do you believe that you're in a supervisory position within the district?
Am I? I don't think that I'm in a supervisory position. I don't think of myself in that
Do you
way.
do you hold influence over any employee within the district?
It's possible that I do.
Because one of the functions of the board is to issue contracts. We are the contracting authority, so every employee in the district has a contract issued by the governing board and signed by the president.
I understand that, John.
So that doesn't put you in a position of influence or authority over an employee.
Well, okay, let's just go back to how this whole thing with the signatures got started. I did not know that Nicole was running for school board. She had told me that she would not run for a second term. When it did come up very briefly, I was standing with 3 school employees, and 2 of them said, no, that's a rumor. She said she's not running, and everybody forgot. I did not know that she was running for school board. What I had been doing, because I was very concerned that we had openings on the school board, as far as I did not know Mrs. Aliar was running or was getting signatures. I heard that. I couldn't find anyone to verify that. And so every place that I went, whether it was the person who gives me my allergy shot and complained about dress code, or people that I would talk to, they would bring up something about the school district and ask a question. So I don't think that's right, or couldn't we do better, or whatever. I said, why don't you run for school board? And that's exactly what happened. In this instance, I was in a conversation with Dr. Pirtle about nothing to do with schools. It came up because he asked me how things were going, and he said it's difficult. And I said, then why don't you run for school board? And he said, to my great surprise, I will. And I didn't know that 2 other people in the school district had already asked him during the summer to run for school board. So when he said he would, I think it was late, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've got like, 2 weeks to get all these signatures. But I asked him, and he said he would, and I felt obligated, and that's what I did. And I got most of them at the DMV or the library. And then I had, I'm sorry to say this, once that came out that he was going to run and that I had had something to do with it, then all of a sudden, out of the blue, people were calling me on the phone, emailing me, give me a petition, give me a petition. People came to my house, I took petitions to their houses, and that is what happened. It wasn't anything that I did to, if I had known Nicole was running, if she had told me, I would not have spent the time going around asking people to run for the school board.
May I interject here?
Go ahead.
Thank you. You posted on Facebook, and the Lake Havasu City Staff Stands Together, which is a district employee group on Facebook, on 8/7 of 18, you posted, thank you all who circulated petitions for Dr. Pirtle for school board and those who signed. We did it. 300 signatures in 2 weeks. Amazing job. Have a great rest of your week. And you tagged J.L. Louder in it. On top of that, when I look at employees who signed petitions that you circulated, based on a breakdown of who signed and what date and where, because the petitions are public record, I find that 17 Lake Havasu Unified School District employees signed your petition. I find it odd that you would cite that you were at the DMV gathering signatures or out in the community, and you ran into 17 employees, including principals, teachers. I'm amazed
I
at
must
who you
have
had
had
signed.
I don't know if I had 4 or 5 different petitions myself.
And then one of the people that used to work for you back when you were principal at the high school gathered, because he's now principal of the school, gathered signatures as well. And he signed up 30 district employees.
But not at his school. He went out on the street, and people came out there to do it.
Are you familiar with 15511?
John,
I need to.
Because
you want to get an attorney? I will get an attorney. I've already.
I'm not looking.
Don't keep accusing me. I've already told you what that principal did, and he did not do anything wrong. It might not have been correct. I agree with you that he is a supervisor, but I get that. I get that whole thing. But as far as breaking the law.
But Kathy, under subsection E of the law, it specifically calls out supervisors. And he is a supervisor of the people who signed the petition. He also is directly related to you in your employment with the district. This has been organized through a district group. This whole thing is at least unethical. It's not good. And I can tell you factually that the superintendent put out an email stating to stop the activity when she discovered it, because I saw it come across my email because it was in everyone.
Right.
And it continued after that within the district. This is a big problem. This is the district employees electioneering a person onto the school board. This is against Arizona law, which you swore in your oath of office to uphold.
Well, all I can tell you is that the principal was out on the street how he got his message out to anyone that he was going to be available to do that, I don't have a clue.
But
I don't know.
he can stand on the street corner. It does not remove him from the fact that he is a supervisory person within the district.
I would just like to state that when I ran for election in 2014, this very same thing happened. And I did not make a deal of it because I did not want to be perceived as petty. But the fact is, and I was very naive at the time, but the fact is that after I was elected and I got on the school board, we updated our policy because this happened in 2014. So we updated our GBI, staff participation in political activities. And it was well known in this district that this had taken place. And thus, the reason for updating our policy to make sure the staff knew this was not possible. I'm not trying to prevent anybody from exercising their right. I'm not trying to prevent anybody from trying to oust me from the board. What I have a problem with is organizing on a campus with the biggest voter bloc in this city for the express purpose of removing me from the board.
There was no organizing.
You can say that all you want.
Then why are you posting on Facebook?
You can say that all you want, but I have
was
put
posting.
the spreadsheet in order and it tells quite a story. And there is quite a few people in leadership roles, not just a principal, that have collected from their subordinates or people under them. So regardless of that, my complaint has been filed. The superintendent and the board president will be required to do something to look at it in more detail, and hopefully it will never happen again. And I made it very clear in my complaint that I was not looking to disqualify a candidate or impose a $5,000 per violation civil penalty. So I just want it fixed. I want the staff to know you cannot do this.
The big problem here, Kathy, is there were over 100 signatures involved in this. Dr. Pirtle, if you remove those signatures, would not have qualified for the ballot.
And odd that a man would not sign his own petition nor circulate one petition for somebody who wants to take my job.
He was out of town.
And to boot, we really need to stop this.
Yeah.
This could cost us a bond or an override if we're in the process
No,
of this.
well, yeah, you're correct. It could.
The other part of this is when I ran in 2016, I was lectured not to have my petitions at the town halls when we were doing the bond and the override. I couldn't do this. I wasn't granted this type of access to staff. I had to go out and I had to go door to door, person by person, and go get my own signatures and have people go through the community and find individuals to sign it for me. This is not saying that they couldn't have gone and signed one down at the bowling alley, but when you have person after person after person in this, and even a sitting board member who's responsible for 17 of these, this is a big problem within the district.
Okay, and I told you what I had done. I told Mrs. Sider what I had done. I did not try to hide it.
No.
I told you that I was wrong.
And
now here you are, and you can castigate me. I am at fault. I was wrong. There is nothing else for me to say. I was wrong to do that. Okay?
And I appreciate you saying that because we
Well, I
really
told
do
you
need to say.
before I was wrong. I told you out in the parking lot that I was wrong.
I appreciate it. I do.
I'm glad that we've
I
had this
sincerely
all
do.
brought out in a public forum. I hope you sincerely appreciate that as well. But that's fine. That's all part of it.
Okay, so unsatisfactory on that?
And don't forget about the rats either, okay?
What, so is that,
Board relationships,
With staff and personnel?
yeah.
Okay. The three items under this category, the board requires the superintendent to recommend personnel for their consideration and consistently adheres to this procedure. The board members make every effort to become acquainted with the personnel of the district. The board members' personal friendships with district personnel are maintained without allowing them to affect overall board decisions and/or policies. Mrs. Cullen, it's your turn to start.
I would say, yes, satisfactory for number one. Number two, board members make every effort to become acquainted with the personnel of the district. I remember last year, we said needs improvement. That was because Kathy, I didn't feel that way. I felt I had tried to become acquainted. So I don't...
What did I say last year?
You didn't feel like you had made an effort to become... I mean, you were acquainted with the people that you already knew, but you hadn't made an effort to become acquainted with employees or whatever. So I don't know about that. But number three...
How do you become acquainted with this employees of the school district? What do you do to become acquainted with them?
Well, I became acquainted with a lot of them during 2016 when they reached out to me and asked them to help them because they couldn't get answers on the Employee Benefit Trust.
Okay.
So
you had a project to work
So I had a
on and you got
project
to know
to
them.
which,
Okay.
yes, correct.
Okay. Because
And then I, would be engaged and be invited to come here or there, and then I would meet other people at, schools or whatever. But
okay, well.
so I don't know. All I'm saying is we had an end there because I distinctly remember.
Because of me, okay.
Well, not because of you. I know you're in a defensive mode right now, but I didn't mean it in a bad way. What I was saying is I'm fine if you want to go to satisfactory because of that. Number three, I feel like is an unsatisfactory for obvious reasons.
And what would they be? What would those obvious reasons be?
Well, let's
What
see.
year?
The curriculum committee, I met with you. I gave you the Hillsdale book. You had it for a couple of months. You were against Common Core, right? That was your big fight for years. I mean, I think it was Pat Wolf who told me, oh, you're going to love Kathy Cox. She hates Common Core. She's so against it. But yet you voted for the Common Core book. So you allowed your friendship with
Oh
the
my
English
goodness.
department.
Oh my goodness, what leaps we have.
Is that a leap?
What a leap.
How is that a leap? Tell me how it's a leap.
My friendships in the English department, Nicole, we were given 3 books to evaluate. We came up, a series, we came up with one, and that was it. What does that have to do with Hillsdale and Common Core? I mean, that's what the state gives us to deal with. They say it's not Common Core. They say they got rid of it, but they didn't. And you and
Well,
I
they
agree with
did.
that.
Why do you keep saying that? Why would you say that?
Because all they did was take away the little exemplar at the end of every...
That's not all they did.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, okay.
Actually, there's...
The standards didn't align with the Common Core book that you voted for. So maybe you changed your mind. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it wasn't your relationships that influenced you to vote for a Common Core book that you had been against for years. Maybe I'm totally way off base, but I don't know how you call that a leap.
First of
And
all-
my point is that I was the one as board president that created a curriculum committee, and then during that curriculum committee, you sat on one side of the room with the group and you all talked about the book, and I had given you the Hillsdale book. Mrs. Asire had made copies of the English, the areas of English, and as a curriculum committee, nobody was interested in even discussing these as an option, and then you voted as a board member for the Common Core book. So I could be wrong. It happened before in 1983.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
Well, you wanted a specific example.
Well, that's fine. I'm glad you gave it, but it's so bizarre. I can't even grab it and talk about it. It had nothing to do with my first personal friendships, and I did not particularly like that series, but that was the one that the committee wanted, and I looked at it a lot. I examined it a lot, and never thought about it in Common Core. I even asked Mrs. Sire, what does this have to do with Hillsdale and Common Core? Why Nicole asked for my Hillsdale book back, and what does that have to do with Common Core? And
Because it was a curriculum committee meeting.
I understand that, but
And you gave no, you didn't even give, I made you a copy of the book so that you could review it, and you never even had a comment on it.
But I
Zilch,
didn't, but
nothing.
we weren't examining the Hillsdale curriculum.
Okay.
We weren't looking at it and considering it for the English curriculum.
Did you understand, Kathy, that there were possibly options past the 3 publishing houses that were reviewed?
No, I don't think that I did.
I think,
It's not brought up in the committee.
It was brought up in the committee. Mrs. Asire went and made copies for the committee of the English section for 9 through 12.
Well, you had already given me one. If she did
I
that,
know.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was one of the 4 up. I thought there were only 3 up for
Well, we were supposed to
consideration.
discuss, we were a committee, but there
I
wasn't
don't remember
a lot of
discussing,
that.
maybe I got there late one day or something. I don't remember discussing
Okay.
Hillsdale.
all right.
But anyway, this
No, we
one-
didn't discuss Hillsdale.
This
So-
one just is totally
So
way
we're,
it was
so
somewhere
under
in La La
D,
Land.
we're in S and N and U.
Okay.
I think we were S and S, and we were talking about number 3, but Mrs. Cohen was the first one to weigh in, so.
Okay, S, S, and U.
No, I'm not accepting a U for 3. I do not use my personal friendships. When I ran for office, I told people that I knew in the district is there will be times you're not going to be happy with me because I am not going to vote your way. And they said they understood that. No, I absolutely do not use my personal friendships in such a manner. So if you want to put an N, but I will not accept the U.
Mr. Ray?
I agree. I don't think Kathy uses, and I've been on the board a long time, and I know a lot of the teachers, and I've never used, and they're good friends of mine, and indicate that just because you have friendships among the people you work with, all of a sudden that influences how you do things, or you try to influence them. I've never seen that in Kathy, and I don't think that's. I could see putting an in there, but this is all foreign to me. And, it's just too bad that this public airing is going out like this, and but anyway, that's that.
Sorry, Pat.
That's my opinion.
Mrs. Cox?
Well, I think should be SSN is what I would recommend.
What I would think.
Mr. Leslie?
At the risk of being obstinate, I think it should be a U.
Go ahead.
Okay, there you go.
Well, I'm not in favor of that at all, just because
It doesn't matter, Pat, this is a meeting to castigate me and to
I don't-
punish me, and that's fine, because I have in 1 or 2 areas, especially with the signatures, I was wrong. But the rest of it is,
well, you know, an example would be like last time, the English department is, I believe, with the high school, right? They brought in a recommendation to approve the certain English books, right?
That was actually the curriculum committee.
Okay, and I voted in favor of that. I know those people. I didn't vote in favor of that because they're personal friends or whatever. They are personal friends. But it was my feeling that these are the professionals, that they've spent, many of them, a lifetime in the English area. And unless someone can show me something better, I'm going to go along with their recommendation. And I think Kathy voted in favor of them too, and I think, as I recall, it was a 2-2, and
Yes.
so the thing didn't pass.
Right.
So for anyone to indicate that, because And I even, at the high school level, I even had some of those people on my staff that influenced it, had nothing to do with it. It was all, these are the professionals that know what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, here's what,
And that's why I voted in favor of it. And so I think, I cannot go ahead and put down a U for
well, let me
that.
tell you, let me try to change your
Not
mind
even
on
if
that.
Kathy wants to move it along, I'm not
Okay.
gonna do it.
Well, let's go back to what John said, that he thought that it was at the least, I don't know if he said unprofessional, but at the most unethical, that because of my personal, I won't say personal friendships, because many of those people who contacted me for petitions, I didn't know them. You know, they came to my house and I met them for the first time. But regardless of that, that's what he's talking about, is when I posted on a private Facebook page, thinking it was a private Facebook page, that I just wanted people to know they could stop gathering signatures. That's it, and I wanted to thank them for doing it. So I have no problem, because I know John, what he thinks about that. I put a U. I have no problem with that.
You know, I look at number 3 and
Needs improvement.
board members' personal friendships with district personnel are maintained without allowing them to affect overall board decisions or policies. You and I are going to differ as to whether this was a friendship issue, but this did violate a district policy.
What thing are you
The
talking
issue
about?
with the signatures did violate a district policy.
Yeah, but I said put a U down, but I don't think that had anything to do with personal friendships. I think.
So then I got to ask, because you went to a board member over at the Employee Benefit Trust and asked them in their position to look at alternatives for employment for Cerner's employees, and you also went in and asked if in their position they could do something with keeping the wellness center open when the EBT was still in negotiations with Cerner, which, and this was a relatively new board member. This is the August 28th letter that was sent to me.
But that wouldn't be a personal friendship situation.
Well, but why would you do something like that?
Because that night, I believe, Liz Marr, most of you know Liz, she had called me and said, or texted me, I think, and they were moving back to Havasu. And she asked for some reason, I have no idea why, about the wellness center. And she said that it's very popular where she was in Indiana, wherever she's been living. And she said, you know, you ought to contact the hospital and see if they would be interested in taking over the wellness center. And I said, well, that's a good idea. And so I was trying to think who I knew at the hospital, and I realized that, you know, with Julie Sassine, that I would call her and just ask her if it was too late or not, you know. And she explained to me that it was too late anyway to do it by December the 31st. So it was no more than Nicole going out and finding a Hillsdale curriculum, or, I mean, it was just me as a board member, we had a problem, and I was trying to help solve it. That's all. I was trying to see if there was another solution to do this. That was all. I was trying to be helpful.
But it's a separate entity and they're operating under contract. Did you think about contacting the chairperson?
Not that night, I didn't. I was trying to, actually what happened, now that I remember, I called and left a message for Julie, and she was out of town or something. I left a voicemail, and it was at least a week before she got back to me, and I had actually forgotten about that I had made the phone call to her. And no, I was just waiting in my mind for Julie to give me a call back to see what she would think.
common practice that I have when I'm communicating with district personnel, even, and I'll give you an example as to why I would communicate with district personnel. We've been taking in laptops for donation at my company, and we've been going through them, making sure everything works on them and turning them over to the district. I've got another batch that's just about ready, and I contacted Mr. Baker earlier this week about them. A common practice that I have in communicating with district personnel is I make sure when I email that I loop somebody else into it. And in this case, I looped Superintendent Asire into it, not to give her, busy or give her something else that she could read, but so that she would know that my communication was what was above board. And if I had done something out of line, I'm giving her the opportunity to stop me in the process, because I don't want to have that impropriety in my communication. If I were going to contact anybody on the Employee Benefit Trust, and I can tell you that I have not had formal communication with anybody on the Employee Benefit Trust board about anything involving the center or the closing of it or what's going to replace it. But I would make sure that I use Mrs. Cox's email address to communicate with them, especially if I'm talking about a newly sat board member who probably may not know all of the intricacies of what's going on at that time. Now, I'm not privileged to your conversation with the board member, but I can tell you that it kind of may have put her in kind of an awkward position. And so when I look at that, whether you say it was Liz Marr, but I don't know. I don't know who contacted you. But what I do see is
What do you mean you don't know who contacted me? You don't believe me?
I would have to talk to Mrs. Marr.
Well, go right ahead.
Okay.
You please do. Oh my goodness, what a thing to say in public like that. I don't smirk at me. That is awful. That was just an awful, awful thing to say. Awful thing to say.
It's more of a
I
grimace than
think we
smart.
need to just move on.
I agree.
Yes, let's move
but
on.
I do want to just interject that I too, even if I'm going to make a move at all, even when I want to go visit a school, I make sure that I let the superintendent know. And I did while I was
Well,
board.
I haven't been guilty of that, Nicole.
Okay. Well, I just, I think that once you've been an employee of the school district, maybe there's a certain comfort level there. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but all I'm saying is there is a perception. And so I was,
Perception of,
oh my gosh, feeling ultra comfortable just walking onto a campus and gathering signatures would be one example.
Are we back to the signatures now? I thought we had covered that.
Well, we had, but I'm just saying you're acting like you don't know what I'm talking about. All I'm saying.
I'm talking about John not
Yes, you're
believing
right. Let's
me
move
when I
on.
said it was Liz Marr. I mean, I just find that, I'm almost speechless, but I'm not. So go on.
So,
We're split between M and U.
What was it last year? Got it right here.
Satisfactory last year, but
Needs improvement.
board relationships to the instructional program, commitment to continuous improvement. In this category, there are 3 items. The board makes an effort to keep informed about the instructional program by providing for periodic reports as deemed necessary and by periodic visitation in the schools. The board attempts to gain information from the community pertaining to instructional program needs. The board maintains policies necessary to enable the educational staff to develop the educational program required to meet the needs of the community. Did you start last time?
I started last time.
Okay.
Well, what periodic reports do we provide as a board?
Providing 4 periodic reports. So those are reports to the board, like we bring forward the assessment results, the kinds of things that we do reports to the board on.
Okay, well, this says the board makes an effort to keep informed.
Right, so what the board does that by what they put on the agenda.
For instance,
That's my
The
understanding.
crane request that Mrs.
understand.
Cohen had, we'll have a report on that at the next board meeting.
You called on me. You called on me.
Yeah.
I called on you.
You know, on that first one, you know, as a board member, and I know I'll be going off, but it would be nice, you know, because we deal with certain things. We can call ourselves a good district or a good school or whatever, but you know, in our reports, how do you determine that? You know what I mean? And by that I mean, some of the things as a board member that I'd like to know is at a certain time, and it all put together, is like, what is the dropout rate? What is the absenteeism rate? What is the indicators that our discipline policies are effective? What are our academics, I mean, what is it academically showing so that there's no confusion? You know what I mean? I would, just a lot of things, I guess at the high school level now, they take the ACT, is that as juniors?
Yes, we do administer the ACT to all juniors.
All juniors. You know, just information like that, to me as a board member, I've always felt that when you, rather than get it piecemeal, if you can get it all at one time and at a public meeting where people are here and you say, look, this is what our schools are doing. And I just think it helps the school district. They need to know that.
The board needs to know it.
And the
too.
board needs to know it, and it needs to be presented at one time, I think. And I just, and anything else like that, I think can be very, you know,
Well, there are a lot of
informative.
things that go on that that I don't know about the program. For example, I just learned last night that something that I had wanted for years was to have youth internships with students at the high school. I was not aware that, I guess it's under CTE now, that the city funds, this didn't happen when I was at the high school. And so, I mean, I think they're just parts and parcels of things around the district that the school board, or at least some members, don't know about, and I think it would be a really good thing for us to have a comprehensive picture. So I don't know how you would approach that, or whether it would be each department, different entities, or whatever, but to fill us in, because I think that's pretty important to know that we have internships for students. I have no idea who hires them.
I do.
Well, I'm glad you know.
The Chamber of Commerce does the program.
Well, I'm glad, but see, that's something I have no idea, just one more thing that I have no knowledge of, and I don't know how long it's gone on, but I never hear about it. It just
There's too many things to know, everything that's going on in
And that is actually a
schools.
chamber function, the chamber does
Right.
that.
There's too many
so they,
things.
But we administer it, right?
No,
No, they do all
Chamber
of it.
does.
I was told that it was done through Marcia Becker.
All they do is make sure that they could get the applications.
Okay, well, see, there you go.
Like
So-
toys for tots.
But I would like to know.
Last year,
Anything concerning our students, even if it interfaces with the chamber or the city. I heard the city funded it, I guess that was wrong. So you said it's just incorrect information. I'm very interested in the students in our district and the opportunities that we can afford them. I think that would be a really good thing to be able to talk about on speaking out. And I mean, it's just one more thing, you know, that I've said before that I don't know. And I wouldn't know how to go seek it because I don't know it's there. And I randomly came across it. And I agree with Pat, if we had some reports in an organized way, we developed a process for things going on in the district, a little bit every school board meeting, not anything overwhelming.
That's what this is.
so
Well, Do we have a report?
Every month, we get a full,
Of course
what's
we-
going on.
But
And every
I've
school
been on
has
the board
a,
for 2 years. I have not heard about this program. I have not heard a report on this
Well, it's
program.
well,
not-
maybe you haven't heard on that program, but what I'm saying is we have these reports, and we also, every school has a newsletter that they do every month that tells you what's going on new.
Well, one of the things, though, earlier I mentioned the policies and each of the sites doing their site councils. Last year, and we did not do it this year, but last year we had a public meeting at the high school library where we presented all of the district data like you're talking about. We did our assessment data, we did our grades distribution, attendance, discipline data. I mean, we had all of that data for the district that we presented to the community. We have the format already in place, we just didn't redo it again this year. But that would be something that we certainly could do annually, kind of bringing it all together in that one report.
And you know, for board members, it just gives us information. We don't have to delve into everything, but it gives us that information that, hey, we're doing a pretty good job. You know, it was like years ago, I had a profile on the high school, and it was a one-page profile. And because people aren't going to read 2 pages or 3 pages.
Right.
And it gave out all that information, our dropout rate, our attendance rate, everything. And I wanted, when people walked in the door, I wanted them to see that. So I wanted to give the good news and the things we needed to work on. And I think it was a very effective thing to do. And I got the idea from some other schools, like in Las Vegas. But as far as a district is concerned, because, you know, we'll have not the aims, but we'll have all that
Aids and
stuff.
merit.
Yeah, and
A
we're
through
always
F.
wondering, how are our kids doing? You know, and I'm sure the public feels the same way. And when you have that, you know, maybe, and I'm really sort of focusing on the high school, but it could be done for every school. And, or elementary, junior high and high school.
Now, I found that meeting last year, which I know you put a great deal of time into. I found it long and tedious myself. And I remember people being restless. I would rather come up with, for example, just the blue sheets on the board reports to make sure that all of the kinds of things that board members would be interested in are somehow or other included in those blue sheets throughout the year.
And that meeting was long and tedious. We had to go through each of those categories
I
of the
remember,
CNA
yeah.
for our district plan, but just the data piece of it separately would be a format that would include
Okay.
all of the different data.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So Pat, are you an S?
Yeah.
What about number 2?
I had down S on all those.
That's on all of them.
Yeah. You know, I don't think that, you know, it's like, you know, as my position as a board member, I have a lot of people I run into, and it's not a formal type of thing, it's very informal, asking me about stuff. So I'm constantly giving information out to members of the community. You know, now, are you going to measure that I've given it out to half the community? No, I haven't. But you know, as a board member, that's what you're trying. They're either asking for it, or they make a comment, and I make sure I find out, or I come up here and find out, and then get back with them. You know.
I think we have I have an S on all of them too.
Okay.
I think we do a pretty fair job of it.
Yeah, you know, it's like in a previous thing, getting to know personnel in the district. How many personnel we got in the district? Are we going to measure that I've met with half of them? Get real.
Just show up at school once in a while, they come to the meetings, get to know people.
I know.
And we skipped Mrs. Cox. Did you have ratings on that one?
Those are fine. S is fine.
All S's, Mrs. Cohen? All S's?
And I do not call the district superintendent every time I visit a school. I mean...
I don't call her.
No, I know that.
Okay.
I know that. But what I'm saying is, you know, I go over there, I try to be as not like sneaking around, but I don't want to interrupt anything. So usually if I'm going someplace, I have a reason for doing it. and I'll see the principal or, and let them know that I'm there, and this is the reason, to put them at ease, you know? I try to.
Mine is always in an effort, and I've told Diana this is why I do it, is because I don't want it to appear, now you don't have this problem because you were the principal there, but as a new board member who's never been an employee, I don't want them to feel like I'm imposing as a
Right.
board member without the superintendent being in the loop, and that's why I do it. So, but I understand what you're
I have the best excuse of all, I go see my kids.
right.
All right, our final ranking section is relationships to the financial management of the school. The 4 categories here are: the board establishes the policies and provides the necessary resources to properly manage the finances of the district. The board requires the proper accountability for the expenditure of funds in the district. The board provides justified funding to maintain a high-quality educational program in this district. And the board keeps the community informed about the financial needs of the district. Moving forward.
I think we're S across the board.
I do
Thank
too.
you, Mike.
Yeah.
Make that much easier now.
I do too.
And the
Does
news.
anybody disagree with that?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So in last year's evaluation on the general statements for major problems that the board faces, what we decided to do last year is, as opposed to putting them in priority, just to identify the areas. And so I would like to go back to review last year's areas that we talked about: attracting and retaining highly qualified and skilled teachers, implementing responsible fiscal practices for a sustainable budget, focusing on product versus process. Our product is an educated student, and have we defined our product? And I think that's something you mentioned again, Mr. Rooney, here. How do we measure success, academic, social, emotional, and physical? Enforcing our policies, appropriate use of technology, what are our instructional priorities and parameters, and we talked about the mental health crisis at that time.
My personal thought is the last 4 on there still exist at some level. Focus on product versus process, enforce our policies, appropriate use of technology and resources, and the mental health crisis.
So those are still concerns?
I see them still as concerns. I haven't heard from anybody else.
I always think that number 1, because they're going to make the difference, is attracting and retaining highly qualified teachers. I mean, you've got to always be pushing that, because if you don't, that's where things are going to get away from you. The kids are going to be shortchanged. And you know, I saw a district down in Tucson that was hiring teachers from India, and I'm saying, no, you know, I don't have anything against them. I'm just saying that we need to be getting the best that we can get. And the nice thing is that I will say it's a plus for the district is over the years, and it continues, we're attracting graduates who want to come back here. They've had experiences in other districts, but they really like the community and they like the district. But I always think you can never let up on that, ever.
And I think that's going to continue to be an issue just because nationally there are not as many teachers available as we need.
Okay.
One of the things that we've been working really hard on is, as you say, bringing people back who want to live here. We also were able to hire, I believe it's, and I'm sorry that Jamie had to leave, I believe it's 6 of the people we hired this year were from our local ASU.
Good.
And so they were already here, they wanted to work here, they wanted to stay here. So that's the retention piece, is that piece that we've learned over time, and I know it's been brought up, is when we bring them from the other side of the country, they get homesick. And so many of them stay a year or 2. Last year, we did lose all of the teachers that we hired from New York. And so we're not even going to go to New York this year.
But I know that's a problem, and it has been for a while. Hopefully, hopefully they'll decide to go into education, some of them. And so.
Put that in there.
Huh?
Put that in there.
Okay,
Are there,
that's what I.
yeah, I think, are there any other major problems that we see that we see as a board that we're facing? As a lot of things have changed in this last year.
I think one of the biggest problems is having a unified voice on the funding problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody doesn't understand the funding problem, the real problem. And so you can't fix it. That was part of my problem with the whole Red for Ed movement. Nobody is addressing the actual funding problem. And so if all of our staff maybe understood that, people could start to knock around ideas about how we're going to address that, because it's only going to get worse. I mean, we're already, and this is already a year old, this data, so number 11 in population under 18, that is supposed to grow by 5% a year. So we're going to continue to add more kids to our system and more retirees. Hopefully we keep growing in jobs, but that's what I mean by, I think there needs to be a real focus so that no matter who's talking to somebody in the school district, they're getting the same thing, instead of this party politics doesn't fund
Right.
or doesn't care about education. It's just so not helpful. So I think that is a huge, big deal for our district,
For the state.
for the
So
whole
that
state.
would be
but-
sustain a dependable financial support?
Well, not even
Is that what you're
sustain, but
I think part of the problem is that the education community is divided against itself in
Right.
a lot of ways. We have this great need to make sure we're funding correctly, but we don't have a comparative tax base with other areas of the country.
right.
And so on one hand, you have people say fund, 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 and on the other hand, you have people who really want to fund, who go,
Right.
we can't keep beating on the drum asking for more money.
Well, I noticed in the newspaper, The Republic, most recent thing is both Ducey and Garcia. That's one of the areas they address. And I think I don't know if they've had a debate or whatever, but it is the issue of adequately funding education.
And yet they're still not talking about the underlying problem with the funding, and that's what I'm talking
The
about.
Enabling Act is the underlying problem with
Right.
funding.
We hear 49th in per pupil spending, that's all we ever hear. You know, we're not funding,
Yeah.
so
And-
I gotta get past that, I
And
think.
then another thing I wrote down, and I think it's very, very important. I think we need to, it goes along with what I was telling you, to have a constantly be informing the public about the quality of public school education, the traditional public schools, because it's like there's a ballot initiative now to expand this thing where, and this has been going on, and we need to let them know. An example is I've run into some people and they've asked me, well, how, even my daughter-in-law asked me about the schools here. And I said, look, because she was thinking of putting her daughter in one of the private schools, and she ended up putting her daughter, kindergartner, in Nautilus. And it's turned out to be great. And but I think sometimes these people don't realize that these public schools are doing a real good job. And unless you keep that in front of the public, and not just, and that's why I was saying statistically, when you just keep this going in front of the public about our successes, you're going to bring people into those public schools. And I think it's true in our community. I think it's true all through Arizona. You know, that's the way I feel. We're in competition. And you know what? We're offering a better product.
Yes, we are. But we aren't making that well-known here.
Exactly.
Well, you have to
Well,
have-
we in particular are, because we have a bit of, but you have to ask yourself, you know, I have gone against the Republicans over this choice from the beginning, okay? No, I've been very loud against it. I've fought
I
with
know you
every
have.
single one of them about it because it's unconstitutional. But why do they want choice? They want choice because they want their kids to learn a classical education. That's what all these charters are offering. And so you can't fight the one without, as a public district, we are talking about it. But we're talking about it, but we also have staff that are railing against it. You know what I mean? Even the idea. But this is why they want choice, because they want an opportunity to give their children a different education. So I think you're right that we should do, you know, be able to communicate better about the traditional public schools as long as we are including some of that choice, which is the reason people leave and go to a charter school. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, I know what you're
Okay.
saying. But I think oftentimes these charters have, they've had very good PR type of
Oh,
things.
no question.
And they've sold this, and the public oftentimes gets sold the bill of goods.
Absolutely.
And,
You gotta have a willing public to buy it.
I don't have the article in front of me, but I was reading an article, and I'm not going to say which charter school, but basically it's almost like remember the old pyramid schemes? So they have to continue to open schools
Exactly.
in order to fund
Right.
payroll. And at some point, the walls come tumbling down. So, I mean, I understand, but the choice behind it that they say all these parents are clamoring for is the choice to teach differently. And that's evidenced in what we read, you know, was in the Pearson books that there was some serious issues with. And some parents don't want their kids being forced into that kind of education. So need to offer a choice within our public schools, so that's good. But I agree with you.
Those are two of the areas I don't mean to drown out anyone, but I think those are important.
I think they.
I agree.
I agree.
What do you think, Kathy?
Sure, I think that's fine.
I didn't hear the last thing.
I asked her if she agreed.
No, that last thing that Mr. Brady said that.
Well, I think those are the two important
Okay.
things for me.
Consistent.
There are others, but I think I ought to listen to some other people talk.
So I've taken out implementing responsible fiscal practices. We've, I think, pretty well established some practices in that area.
Yeah.
Left on the ones that were there already, adding in the consistently inform our public about the quality of our public schools. And I have unified voice on funding problem. Maybe part of that is also a lack of a sustainable public funding for education. That also describe that?
Well, it includes that. It includes the constant the legislature constantly mandating things, the State Board of Ed actually, and then it's, you know,
Right.
codified by the legislature, and then there's no additional monies for it. So it's that whole
Unfunded
education
mandates
piece,
and,
yeah. And I wanted to add one more thing besides the funding piece and doxing. I've brought it up a few times, but now I'm starting to see it all over the place. And so anywhere we've got tech, I want that as part of the understanding. Got people going to jail because some high-level senators were just doxed. It's happening all the time. And
How do you spell docs?
DOX.
DOX.
DOXS?
XX.
XX.
What is it?
That's where they They expose you. They expose your personal information online in order to send a mob or in order to shame you or whatever it is. And with the amount of data that we collect on these kids, and honestly, that was the reason that I came in. Even though I couldn't fully articulate it back in 2013, that was the big reason, and it's scary.
There's a reason why they know where the senator's having dinner and they show up there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, looking at the weaknesses that we identified, that we've observed in our system, how do we stimulate parent involvement outside of PTA? How do we ensure our program articulates with post-secondary expectations?
I still think both of those need to be on there. You know, we've done a few things with the site councils to help with parental involvement, but it's going to be an ongoing issue. How do you get a busy, overworked parent or two involved in what's going on at the school?
I know how. Reduce the amount of involvement required at the school. Sorry, I had to just make a little funny there because there is something going on every single day at every single school.
Maybe what we should be looking at then is how do we guide a parent into involvement that doesn't consume them?
Maybe we need to define involvement.
Maybe we need to add the word meaningful parent involvement.
Exactly,
Thank you.
because
Let's put that in there.
I think we had a lot of parents at Rachel's Challenge, but if you've got multiple kids and you're getting those Blackboard texts every single day for the next thing, you know, you're gonna burn out. There's only so many hours in a day.
Well,
Hey, can I ask a question, Superintendent? How do you measure, because this articulation thing has always been important to me, how do you measure and get back to the staff if articulation is being real successful? You know what I mean? Elementary to junior high and then to the high school. And how do you drive that? Because it seems to me that if you're really if that's really a serious thing, you're going to begin to see some things where you can measure it. That high school can tell the junior high, we're getting kids in here that are not performing at this level. I think that's real important.
And we're actually, we have a pretty structured process for our horizontal and vertical articulation, and we keep refining it. So for this year, from everything that I can tell, it's been pretty powerful.
Good.
Some of the things that we've done, particularly starting with mathematics, is bringing the middle school, high school math teachers together, because that's been an issue. Looking at the progression of the standards and what we're covering in those areas. And then we're working with that with the English Language Arts Department, but that's a little bit slower process.
How do you measure that though?
You really, it's difficult to measure. We measure it a little bit by participation,
Okay.
but also by implementation of agreements.
Okay. Is it measurable as far as student performance? Like if all of a sudden you have a couple of elementary schools not taking into account that maybe the socioeconomic differences, if they're showing up at the junior high and they're doing exceptionally well,
Yes.
can you measure that?
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
I'd like to go back to parent involvement for a minute. Somebody mentioned perhaps we should define what parent involvement is. To me, the most important thing about parent involvement, first is to get your child to school. Second is when he comes home at night, to make sure that he gets into a routine and develops self-motivated over the years to get his work done, a concept of quality and pride. That the parents think that that's important, that what he's doing at school is something important. If we can just do that, that's enormous. I mean, if we can find a way for parents to do just that, and then they do come to assemblies when their kids perform. But with parents working, most of them, 2 parents working jobs, and trying to come up to the school and volunteer and do that kind of thing, or even come to PTAC. So many of them work, most of them can't come to PTAC meetings at 3 in the afternoon. So just that simple thing is if we could include that in a statement somewhere about, here's what parent involvement looks like. You can do more, please, we need you. We would love to have you be more involved. Just that very thing is important.
I think when we were working on the guiding principles, we did have some of that embedded in there about parents getting their kids to school and so forth. That was part of our recognition.
So maybe we don't need this as a weakness. How do we stimulate parent involvement outside of PTA? We don't need to include that.
I think we should, and the reason why I think we should is parental involvement is an ongoing issue and not a singular issue.
Maybe we should define it.
And I think these are your list of weaknesses, but I don't even think you need to include outside the PTA because we have very few parents who are involved.
Right. How do we stimulate
Yeah.
parent
I just
involvement?
think how do we stimulate meaningful parent involvement?
Yeah, how do we stimulate meaningful parent involvement? I don't know.
I
think we've already addressed that. I think the individual schools are always going after that, and I think at this point, I mean, there are so many things about what parents should do that we just need to take that off, and you know what I'm saying? There's a focus and a goal for that already, and I just feel like there were a lot of parents that came that, so, I mean, this is the last school year, we just saw a lot of parent engagement. So, but I think that was because there was a meaningful program. So I think we can take it off. And I think you're right, everything is in the guiding principles and the schools are working on that all the time.
Well, John thinks that we should keep it.
Well, it's,
I can go either way.
I think if you want to do that, then that's fine. It seems like though that the board is taking on, I don't know that that's the role of the board to stimulate parent engagement. That's what the schools are for. Like they're the ones that are in touch with, not that we can't have ideas and shoot them, but I don't know that it needs to be something that we're judging ourselves on. I mean, I'd be thrilled if you know, it was just reading, you know, every level, kindergarten through 12th, find meaningful parent involvement would be encouraging your kids to read what they love at every grade level, not just the homework, but what they love.
And this may be a good reason to include it is because we don't have a benchmark against it.
Well, but
What is meaningful?
But they
parent
do,
involvement?
well, meaningful, true, but they are measuring parent involvement. It's part of their metric, it's part of their,
What is our metric going out?
but that's what I'm saying, I don't know that we need one.
Well, the statement is weaknesses you have observed in the operation of the school system.
Yeah, but I don't think it's just the school system, I think
Right.
it's a societal thing, I think it should be off of our, that's my thought, but if you disagree, then I think you should come up with something meaningful to measure and not just say, how do we, you know, some bullet point just to have it there.
So what have we got down for 2?
Just one, I think, we're still deciding on one, the other one.
I think curriculum, I think that's the one thing that we've heard, especially from the elementary schools, as a weakness. So I know that we're going to focus on it, so, I mean, but I think in the operation of the school system, that's what I've heard the most, is about the curriculum, so.
Curriculum and resource.
That is an area generally is resources,
Mhm.
Okay.
curriculum and resources.
But we need to know what that is. I mean, we need to know what those resource needs are. We can't just continue to hear we don't have the resources. We need, well, what
We
are
actually are
those?
working on that survey.
That's good. So happy.
It's in process.
Mr. Murray has been very busy.
Mr. Murray's looking over like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Well, are we leaving on there the articulation with post-secondary expectations?
I wouldn't. I would take that off, too.
I think internal grade level articulation.
That's what I'm most concerned about, you know. I think the other thing will take care of itself, you know. I'm more concerned about articulation and within our district. That's enough, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, what's our significant accomplishment?
You want to have dinner tonight?
I think one of the significant accomplishments is this Rachel's Challenge.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I think you've got to put that right up at the top.
Finding a way to do the field. That was work on his end.
Stadium renovation.
Oh, I think that's got to be up there too. I think the reinstatement of art and PE in the elementary schools, I think that's got to be up there. And then our preschool program over at the high school just got an award. Those are all things that...
Magnet school.
Magnet school.
Yeah, magnet school. Those are all, to me, things to really celebrate.
I would suggest we also keep on there greater financial transparency because we keep getting better at the reports and.
Yeah.
I think we've done pretty well.
Continued, how about continued financial transparency?
Yeah.
Because I feel like we
Right.
have done a really good job at
Continued.
that. You know, the people with the toughest questions don't even have the questions anymore because it's just there, so. Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's a significant accomplishment that we have literally, that we have a new EBT and trust consultant. I think that's huge. And I know, I don't know that I would say that shutting down the wellness center is a,
The financial stability.
but
of
the
trust.
stability of it and
That's
the fact that we've gotten to the that we're working with real numbers. How's that? I don't know how else to put that, but.
Right.
I also think one of the accomplishments of the board was really providing a very robust and fair compensation package to our staff.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And high school busing. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
High school busing.
Oh, yes.
Air conditioning.
Yeah.
Absolute air conditioning. What did you call it?
Havasu package.
House of package.
Havasu special.
That was a special, that's right. Okay.
You know, and before we shut down, just quickly, I'll be going off the board, and but I would hope down the line that $400 fee that we charge kids to participate, that maybe once we get ourselves in financial order, you know, that we can reduce that, because I just think that there's so many things that a good, robust extracurricular program, and I'm primarily focusing on athletics, does for kids. And you know, we have that beautiful stadium, and I think it's got to be built on a pyramid type of thing where you have large involvement at the lower level. And then what you're going to do is, if you have good reading at a lower level, kids get into high school and they're reading. If you have good extracurricular at the lower level, they get into high school and the public sees what they're doing. And, you know, as a departing board member, I don't mean to prolong the meeting, but I would hope that somewhere along the line, if we get ourselves into financial situation, that we get rid of that.
You and I are on the same page.
I had to say that, so I don't want to throw a monkey wrench. And the news people are gone, so it wasn't for the press.
Right. So, anything further on the,
We'll get this all drafted up and send it out to you so that you can check it and make sure that it reflects what we believe was said here.
Mr. President, should we take a vote on this? To accept as consensus?
I will entertain a motion for consensus on our work day tonight.
Did you just say approve that?
I move that we approve a final draft of the product and an understanding that it was developed under consensus of the board.
Okay, second.
Can you make the motion, Mr. President?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michael Cohen,
Yes.
Kathy Cox,
Yes.
Pat Rooney,
Yes.
John Maston.
Yes. And our next meeting will be formally on October 23rd. The 16th, we will have our work session. We hope that the crowd gathered here today for the financial reporting and board review will be there. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Just let you know that most of us will be off next week,
Yeah.
So,
available by cell phone.
Pat Rooney,
Yes.
Michael Cohen,
Yes.
Kathy Cox,
yes.
John Maston.
Yes,
Thank you.
we are adjourned.
Have a nice evening.